Pop Punk and Pizza podcast is brought to you by Pop Punk Takeout, which is a monthly subscription box filled with merchandise from pop punk artists from all over the world, delivered right to your door in a pizza takeout box or a Chinese food takeout box. You can sign up right now at poppunktakeout.com and also follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Pop Punk Takeout.
I'm going out, I gotta go. I'll bang a rang on the radio. So turn it up, I'm telling you. I think I'm ready for something new. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza.
You're listening to Pop Punk and Pizza with Jacques Lamour.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to Pop Punk and Pizza. I'm Jacques Lamour. If you listened to our episode last week, you heard me talk about the unfortunate event of my external hard drive completely failing and crashing on me, which contains not everything Pop Punk and Pizza podcast related, but a good chunk of things starting in March, to be exact. And then another podcast I do called Kankakee Podcast. Everything I have for that podcast was also on this hard drive. So everything is recoverable on this hard drive, but I have to pay a company between $2,400 and $2,600 to recover the data on it. So I officially decided I'm going to launch a Kickstarter. So I'm in the process of doing that to raise money to help pay for the recovery of this data, because I don't want to lose it, right? This is all very important stuff. So the reason I'm bringing it up is because since I'm literally right now going through the formation of coming up with different perks and rewards for the Kickstarter, I want to hear from you on what you would like to pledge for on this Kickstarter. So if you're like, hey, I want to guest host an episode of Pop Punk and Pizza, or, I want to be able to put together playlists for the podcast, or I want t-shirt, or, whatever it is exactly that you'd like to pledge for the Kickstarter, let me know as soon as you hear this. Hit me up on our Facebook, our Instagram, and also our Twitter at Pop Punk Pizza Pod. You can also join our Facebook group, and just let me know what you would like to pledge for, because I want to make sure that I'm putting up rewards that you actually care about. So thank you in advance, by the way, for all your feedback and encouragement on that. So our first guest tonight on the podcast is Christian Fisher. He is the frontman for, excuse me, Settle Your Scores. And they just put out a new record called Retrofit via Mutant League Records. And it, to me, could easily become a new classic pop punk record, if that makes sense. So let's give Christian a big warm welcome.
Oh, I like the sound bit. It's cool.
Thanks, man.
Epic.
Gotta have a nice applause for you. So Christian, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. And dude, I am sorry about your hard drive. I've been through that data loss thing before. It is a nightmare. So I totally understand your pain right now. I feel so bad for you.
Thank you. It really could have been worse. And luckily, what's funny is this hard drive I bought. I just bought it in March of this year, so it's not even that old. But I've never had this happen to me before, but I've learned a hard lesson to always back up my stuff, because I did not have anything backed up on any other hard drives or a cloud. So I'm also, and that's what I should have said too, I'm also in the process of making sure that I have a proper backup system so that doesn't happen again, because I couldn't believe how much it costs to get that recovered. Like
Dude, it is
it's
so expensive. It's
it's insane.
ridiculous.
And I had when I was, posting on like Facebook and stuff about it, saying how much it was going to cost, people are like, I think you should get a second opinion on that. And I'm like, they're not wrong, but like the other places I looked at were roughly the same, and I also trust like the computer tech guy that I have,
Right.
I trust his judgment, and I don't want to screw around with this stuff. Like, I don't want to take it to like some dude's cousin that, like screws around with computer stuff like on his off days from doing whatever. Like, because from what I've been told by different techs is that the more you mess with the hard drive, the more you lose, so it's like, yeah, I want to make sure I can get everything, if not
Right.
almost everything. But yeah, man, when did that happen to you? What did you lose?
It was like a few years ago. It was an Xbox hard drive. I had like
Oh
all my
man.
save files on there, and it was like
Oh,
before, this was like the 360 days when they didn't have cloud storage. So I had like my whole game library on there, and I forget like how it got destroyed. I think I spilled something on it, but it
oh
was
man.
rough, man.
That
Super
is
rough.
that is
RIP Fallen Soldier.
yeah, that is super rough. The 360s don't, or did it come eventually? Was there a cloud backup eventually for
I'm pretty sure
360?
Microsoft had that like towards the tail end of it when they had the one coming out, but I can't remember specifically. But yeah, it was a rough time. I lost all my stuff.
Yeah, that sucks. I'm sure if my brother Joe was here right now, he would know all about it because he used to fix Xbox 360s and resell them online all the time. I can't remember exactly what he would do to like refurbish them. It probably had something to do with I'm sure the hard drives and stuff like that, but I'm
Right.
sure he would know all about that if he was here. We got let's see, we got the Low Rollers Gaming said F for Christian's
F F
Xbox.
F F F F F F in the chat, boys.
Absolutely. Jane Bostwick said she wants a coffee mug. Yeah, I'm gonna try to have some coffee mugs for the Kickstarter.
Can't go wrong with a solid mug.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can never have too many coffee mugs. I have a coworker who just has like a big collection of them. That would be like if I collected like pizza boxes or like pizza cutters. I really think it would be hard to collect pizza cutters, but pizza boxes probably would be, you know. Um, oh, thanks, man. Do you know who Low Rollers Gaming is?
That's my buddy Joe.
Oh, okay. Thanks,
He
Joe.
Yeah, he and I were D&D buddies, and we made dice together for
Okay.
D&D. Like we made like handmade custom dice. He's one of my good
Wow.
pals.
So what's the trick about you're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, right?
For sure.
So how did you get introduced to that? Because that is a world that I have never gotten into, and whenever I come across someone who does that or magic, I just kind of want to like try to learn and understand exactly how it works.
Dude, I mean, so you said you've never jumped into the world of D&D. My recommendation would be don't unless you want it to like consume your life. Honestly, like I play so much D&D and think about D&D all the time, but the
Do,
way I got introduced to it was my dad. He actually played like the first edition back in like the late 70s, early 80s.
oh
So
wow.
he was all about it. Like when I was a kid, he played like the digital game on like old PC, like the floppy disks.
Oh
So
man, yeah, I remember
yeah,
those.
he would play those, and he would say like, "Hey, like we're gonna play this game," and he would just like play, and we would sit and watch him, me and my little brother. And so I've been interested ever since. I started playing the actual like fifth edition tabletop with Joe, Low Rollers Gaming, and then some other pals.
So, what exactly is the goal or object or like the synopsis of Dungeons and Dragons?
That's the crazy thing, man, is D&D, it allows you to do whatever synopsis you want to do. Like there's like classic books like through the actual like D&D Forgotten Realms Sword Coast universe, but then there's also like you can do like Star Wars D&D
I was gonna
campaigns.
say, isn't there?
Yeah.
There used to be a growing up in the town I grew up in, Mantino, there used to be like a gaming shop downtown, and
Mm-hmm.
they would play D&D, and I'd watch through the window as I would walk by sometimes to see what they had in there and what they were playing. And I remember seeing like Lord of the Rings, like
Yep.
D&D. So it's kind is so it's almost is it similar to like all the different Monopoly versions? Is it kind of like that? You know how there's
Close enough. I mean, the thing is, it's if you want to like be creative and you want to like role play as like an adventurer, it's pretty cool. Yeah, you can just like do whatever. Like there's books about every type of universe and like every type of setting. You know what I mean? It's pretty endless.
so it's like the nerdiest thing you could
It is
possibly.
literally like I don't know how I've ever had a girlfriend, honestly. Like,
Are
but
you
it's awesome. It's
are
cool
you
nerd.
single now, or are you taken?
Well, I'm actually kind of in the process of separating from a marriage, but I don't want to go into the
Oh,
details.
oh,
So,
I'm not gonna make you
yeah,
dig that
but
up if,
you know,
yeah, I understand.
is moving through it.
Yeah. It's because the D&D, isn't it?
That's exactly why. Like hands down, exactly.
You don't make love to me anymore. You just play D&D.
You keep talking like an orc. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh, you like it reminds me of um there's the movie with Zac Efron and Matthew Perry, 17 again,
Sounds
where
about right. I think I've
yeah,
seen that.
yeah,
The
17
new one.
again. Yeah, where like his brother, or I think it's his brother, is boning the principal.
Oh yeah,
And
they are huge LARPers.
yeah, and they're
Like they're super into like the Lord of the Rings shit.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is D&D to a T, like hardcore. Like
Gosh.
epic.
Yeah, this is the quote of the night so far. You keep fucking like an orc. Yeah, that's so far the quote of the night. I love it. I'm glad
I'm
we
sorry
saved.
for ruining your podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Good night, folks. We'll be here tomorrow, same time. Yeah, boop. Yeah, definitely. Um, but aside from that, we should probably actually talk about settle your
Yes,
scores.
yes,
So
yes.
Retrofit just came out August 20th via Mutant League Records, and I was pleasantly surprised when I dove in and I took a listen to it, first track, right out of the gate. And I've actually been listening to the record pretty much nonstop since it came out
That
this
makes me
last
so happy,
Friday.
man.
It's real. I really meant what I said when I brought you on. I could see this becoming a new classic album for this decade. You know, being like, oh, but what about Retrofit from Settle Your Scores? Like that album is amazing. You know, like that. I could just see it becoming a new classic
That
for
makes me
for
so
the
happy,
scene.
man. That is like that's one of the most humbling things to ever hear. I'm not even gonna lie.
I mean,
Thank you so
because
much.
that's the goal, right? I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah, but
that's
it's still crazy to hear that. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's everyone's dream. I mean, I can tell this is well put together. It's well produced. I mean, it's familiar, but it's also fresh. There's a nice mix of different styles of pop punk in there from different eras
Right.
and things like that. And I kind of like how, those first three songs, they kind of all go together. And maybe the whole record does, but I just really noticed it for the first three songs, how well they mold together. And I miss records that would always kind of concentrate on that, where like the first three or four songs, they just like smack you in the face, with
Right.
like boom, 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 and
Keeps
obviously,
coming.
yeah, and of course, the whole record is great. It's not just because the other, like right before we were going on, I had staring at the ceiling stuck in my head. That's another, and that's track 5. That's right in the middle of the record. So it's a great got a lot of variety going on in this record, but For you, where does it begin? Where does Retrofit begin?
How do you mean, like, begin, like,
It,
how?
what was the first song that
Oh,
came together?
so Ricky, our guitarist, he's the primary songwriter of the band. He just cranks songs out. Like, he has had, I would say most of Retrofit written before like our album cycle for our second album even ended. Like, we were
Wow.
practicing those songs. Yeah, we actually wanted to go and record Retrofit a lot earlier than
Uh-huh.
we did. But we were on an album cycle for Better Luck Tomorrow. But I think from what I remember, it's been so long, man. I'm not even kidding. I think the first song that he pitched to us was Meant for Misery. So it was Meant for Misery, 1999. There were actually a couple songs that did not make the record that he pitched after those two.
Hmm.
But then they just kind of followed sequentially. Like, it pretty much came the way that they were written on the album. So, one of the songs, Genitools, that's actually written by our bass player. So that was actually around the same time Meant for Misery came out. But this record has been in the works for so long. And to hear you say this might be a new classic, that just makes all the time and waiting and effort feel so worth it. You have no idea how good that feels to hear, man.
So
We've worked so hard on this album.
were you sitting on it during the pandemic,
Oh,
or
dude, yeah. We were writing and recording pretty much, before the pandemic. The pandemic came around and we did tighten up some things and we did record a couple songs, but it was pretty much completely written like before the pandemic was even over. So
okay?
yeah, we were kind
Damn.
of sitting on those songs. Yeah, I guess it's good that we didn't release the record right when we had everything done, because it
Yeah.
would have been a shitty pandemic album release.
Hmm.
But yeah, so we kind of wanted to wait until the pandemic kind of slowed down so we can kind of evaluate, like, where's the music industry? Can we tour? Can we even play shows? Like, are people even watching live? You know what I mean? We had to like cover all the bases, basically, is what we were looking to do. But yeah, it's been a long time coming, dude. I'm so excited to have this record out.
It would be that is the hardest thing, to sit on new material.
It really is,
I
dude.
can't remember who I was talking to on the podcast not too long ago about that, but it's just so it's so hard to do, because
I know, man.
it's especially when like I said, it's something as good as Retrofit, and you're going through this whole pandemic, and everyone is like, well, I guess we can just listen to new music, but it's like, well, I don't know if this is a good time. Like, everyone else is sitting on records they want to release, and
Right.
it's just the toughest thing to do when you get so excited about something.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too, is the longer we waited, the longer we were like, oh man, like, hopefully, like, the hype from our last album doesn't die down. Hopefully the hype from our last tour doesn't die down. But luckily, it seems like everything is, right on track. You know what I mean? It seems like the response has been pretty good. And the hype, that was my main concern, was we waited a long time to release this. I think it's been like 3 years. You know what I mean? So we were kind of worried about that, but luckily everyone was like, oh, the boys are back. So
Yeah.
nothing really changed, which makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you, so when your bassist brings the songs to the table, or do you write the lyrics for it, or is he pretty much the soul of everything?
Typically, Ricky, he's our guitarist and primary. He does vocals too, actually. Ricky does guitar, vocals, and songwrites like 99% of everything.
Or
He
1999% of everything?
Yeah,
That was
pretty much.
horrible. I'm
Hey,
gonna
man.
go. I'm gonna just go
No, dude,
now.
cue
And
that
I'll,
applause soundbite. That was lit.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That was possibly the worst pun I've ever
I
done.
think that was the best pun, dude.
Oh,
So
well,
goes down in
thank you.
history.
I'm glad that you're not gonna shun me for that one.
Dude,
Thank you.
I love a good pun, honestly, for real. So Ricky, he's the primary guy. Like, he is a
Okay.
songwriting mastermind. He brings fully written demos, like multiple vocal layers, guitars, bass, drums. He writes everything. He just sends it to the band email and says, "Hey guys, got a new banger." And we're like, "Oh fuck, he does have a new banger," because every time he does,
wasn't
it's
kidding.
amazing. Yeah, and it's all like perfectly written usually.
Yeah.
But after that, we all come together. Obviously, we practice the songs live. If stuff doesn't sound right, or it's like too challenging to pull off live, or it just something isn't correct, we collaborate. You know what I mean? There's parts added during the recording process. There's parts removed during the recording process.
Yes.
I fuck up lyrics during the recording process, and then we just go with the takes. That happened on one of our singles from the second album. I fucked the lyrics up, but the take was good, so we just kept the wrong lyrics.
Really?
Yeah,
Man.
on Keep Your Chin Up, the chorus, the line is supposed to be, thought that after all this time my life would work out fine, but I said turn out fine instead of work out fine.
Oh,
but
well, that's not that bad.
Well,
that doesn't.
I feel bad because if someone got my lyrics wrong, I'd be pissed. But Ricky, he's the man. He doesn't care.
I mean, at least you didn't like. It wasn't like really far off. Like,
right.
You know, you didn't completely change what you were trying to say. Like the point is still gotten across. You know.
Yep.
Speaking of 1999, what do you wish you could bring back from 1999?
Basically everything, man. I love the like. I wasn't even that old when it was. I was 7 years old when it was 1999, but I remember it so vividly, and that's why I was stoked that Ricky wrote that song, because being a kid in the 90s and I guess early 2000s, it blends together, obviously, but
yeah.
I think it was that vibe of technology is getting to be really great, but you can still rely on imagination and like hard work and like research in general. I don't know if that makes sense. It was like pre-smartphone times.
Yes.
But you were still able to enjoy convenience and technology. Like as a kid, you could play with a stick in the 90s and it'd be really, really cool. Or you could jump on the N64 and play Ocarina of Time. It was a pretty great duality.
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably was the best thing is because, you know, millennials experienced time. Sure. They experienced time before smartphones. So they kind of were we were kind of able to experience that and then kind of grow up into the technology.
Absolutely.
But some could argue technically all generations grow through technology, which is absolutely true. But so before we recorded, I was looking up like what things actually happened in 1999, because there's some things I can't remember because I was 9 years old, so I wasn't much older than you. And Napster was created in 1999.
Classic.
In June. So there's that. Thank you, Naps. I mean, I illegally downloaded stuff from Napster.
Dude. So much. And like, LimeWire.
LimeWire. Yeah, like you wouldn't believe. There was something else. Gosh, I can't remember what it was now that I was looking at. I was looking it up on Wikipedia. Of course, Wikipedia can get things wrong. It could even be wrong about that. But still, Napster was, even if it was off by a year, you know.
I'm pretty sure we did the same thing when we were actually coming up with the concept for the video. We were like, okay, there's going to be people that realize some of this stuff is not from 1999. And there were a couple things in the video where people are like, the Mark, Tom, and Travis show actually came out in 2000. I forget what year. But they saw the Mark, Tom, and Travis show poster, and they're like, it actually didn't come out in 1999, bro. And we were like, they got it.
I think it was probably 2000.
I think it was 2000, like right on the dot. And we were like, fuck, they found it.
Close enough. Close enough.
I mean, it all kind of blends, like that 99 to like 2002 or 3. I would say that's all kind of the same year in my brain, just because I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. It all blends together. And Low Rollers Gaming says Rugrats, bro. Yeah, definitely. It's now a classic for sure.
I love Rugrats.
But we should probably jump to before we wrap up, because we do have to get to Scott of Pulley for our second guest tonight. But we should probably talk about your most recent single, which is Broken Heart Scenario, and talk about throwbacks. The music video for this song is it's dripping with that 2000s scene kid image in it.
2005, baby. We looked right at 2005 specifically, and we just looked at promo photos, bands. I was actually super, super stoked to do that video and that song because that was more my style growing up. Was like I was super into like scene and like screamo. You know what I mean? Like
Yes. Yep.
the
Hawthorne
scene kid.
Heights
Emo,
and
yeah.
My
So
Chem and
the rest of the guys were more into the pop punk stuff, but I was the emo kid, man. Like I love that shit. Under Oath is my favorite band by far. Like they always will be. Number one.
I never would have guessed. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome, man. So before we play Broken Heart Scenario, what else? Or where can everyone find Retrofit and all the Settle Your Scores socials and all that stuff, and anything else related to the band?
Sure. So you can find our music on pretty much any streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, all that good stuff. Just search Settle Your Scores, Retrofit. It'll pop right up. You'll see the album art. It's got the notebook paper and some doodles on it. Our social media, you can find us on Facebook, Settle Your Scores. You can find us on Instagram, Settle Your Scores. Twitter, I think it's SYS Pop Punk. And recently I started doing TikTok kind of individually, but I have band stuff on there and music related stuff on there. But it's underneath my solo project that I'm writing right now. It's called Blades, but it's Blades, BLVDES. So kind of calling back to the emo kid in me. That A is upside down. It's a V. It's super cringe, but hey, whatever.
Nice.
But the TikTok, you can find that under Blades Official, BLVDES Official. And there's pop punk stuff on there. It's not just solo music stuff, but
okay.
And one other thing I want to plug, since I see Joe Low Rollers Gaming in here, is we have another project. He and I, we're doing. It's called Stormcraft Woodwork. So we're gonna make custom woodwork stuff for tabletop games. So if you're super into D&D, if you want to buy some cool, really nice custom wood stuff for your dice, for your table, whatever, we're gonna be posting some stuff on our socials. You can just find it by searching Stormcraft Woodwork.
Nice. That's
yes,
awesome.
Sir.
Cool. All right. Well, Christian Fisher from Settle Your Scores, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, dude. It was so fun. I am always down to come on here. This has been a blast.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to do this again for sure. And
absolutely,
maybe the next time when you're in Chicago, we can hook up.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I'm so down. That sounds really fun.
All right, man. Take care.
See you, man.
This is another classic case of a broken boy who learned to hate love. And as the years passed by, he wondered why he never seemed to be enough. For you, everything that I do, it's all for you. All the lies that leave those lips, I can taste them on your tongue. And every hand that's held your hips is you convinced them that they were the only one of us can leave this town alive. Us is going to survive. If it's the last thing that I do, I'll make sure that one is you. Apply a thread to every shred of false hope that you fed me. Then you kicked the chair out from my legs and held the rope so steady. It's telling me I believed every word you said. Well, you ignored every drop of red I bled. It's my broken heart scenario. Can be played in stereo. I'm broken just for you to help me spell out the hell that you put me through. My broken heart scenario. Front row at my burial. But no matter what you do, I'll always be a fool for you. Put up quite a front before you stab me in the back. Darling, don't you look so divine as you devise your next attack. Should've kept on my defenses, but now I'm left stuck with the consequences. And consequently, the pain you bring. You were my last lifeline, then you severed my heartstrings. You led me along, you led me on, and left me here to wonder how it went so wrong as you sailed on and let the current pull me under. I guess forever, but you don't care. You only wanna watch me fail. I break my back for you, but you wouldn't break a nail. It's my broken heart scenario. Can be played in stereo. I'm broken just for you. broken soul, a broken boy who learned to hate love. And as the years passed by, he wondered why he never seemed to be enough for the girl who meant the world to him. The world that left him God-forsaken, a cycle too late to undo, all of which has led me to my broken heart scenario. Can be played in stereo. I broke it just for you to help me spell out the hell that you put me through. Broken heart scenario. You're my barrier. No matter what you do, always be useful for. Broken heart scenario. Play this at my funeral. And as I'm laid to rest, I hope you know I tried my best.
Broken Heart Scenario by Settle Your Scores. They're from their brand new record, Retrofit, which is out now via Mutant League Records. Make sure you pick up a copy of that record. It's absolutely amazing. Obviously, before buying a physical copy, you can listen to it on Spotify. And the video is directed by Alex Zarek. It's absolutely amazing. In case you're listening to this instead of watching it, find that on YouTube and give it a watch. Before I bring Scott Radinsky of Pulley onto the podcast, just want to remind you real quick that Pop Punk and Pizza podcast is presented by Pop Punk Takeout, which is a monthly subscription box. It delivers merchandise from pop punk artists from all over the world and delivers it directly to your door in a takeout box, in a pizza takeout box or a Chinese food takeout box. There's two different versions of it. Now, for the month of September, they've teamed up with Smart Punk Records to put out a very special box, and it does include items from Chris DeMakes of Less Than Jake. So that's just one of the many artists you'll find in the September box. So if you want to sign up for that today, go to poppunktakeout.com and also follow them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Pop Punk Takeout. Let's go ahead and bring Scott onto the show. He's probably one of the most, he is one of the most interesting guests I've ever had on the show, because not only is he the frontman of a well-known skate punk band, but he was also a Major League Baseball player as well. And that is definitely a first for us here on Pop Punk and Pizza. So thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've never interviewed a Major League Baseball player, so this is so cool.
Yeah, well, we've never talked to each other, so that's why.
No, you're right, exactly. I mean, you have such a unique story. I mean, no one else, I feel like, in punk rock has a story quite like yours. I mean, obviously everyone's different, but there a lot of I feel like a lot of people in the scene have a lot of similar stories. But you're like, you were in a punk band and playing baseball at the same time, so it's like. It's just mind-blowing to me how, and I'm sure you look back at it now yourself and probably think, how the hell did I do that? You know?
Yeah, sometimes just doing one now seems challenging, but
yeah,
back in high school when we first started, we were a SoCal hardcore type band, in the early mid '80s, just kind of playing and didn't put much thought into, I was going to school, so that's what I was doing at school. And then we'd go home and, after school, we'd jam, play a gig on the weekend here and there. And didn't really seem that like a overwhelming or daunting, And then as it became a baseball after high school became a profession. And, obviously at the time music was, and really still is, it's never been a livelihood for us. But certainly back in those times, you're lucky to scrape up enough money for gas, to go play a gig. So once things started going, and I had some time to kind of stabilize myself in the baseball world there for a few years, and then somewhere around 92, 93, I think the music started to shift a little bit, and we kind of shifted with it, and that's when things became a little more challenging. That the shows were better. There was more of a, I guess, a want, to book us and to play, and we had offers to go on to do tours. So that's when things really, for me personally, became kind of challenging because, well, definitely challenging. Baseball's an 8-month tour. For those who don't know, it's basically it's February to October, and there's a handful of days off in there, and that's really it. And I'd come home after this grueling 8-month tour of constant travel and doing things, and maybe get a week or two, and then we would go on tour somewhere. So there was a few years in there where it really became, I was kind of burning it at both ends for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're pretty much on tour all year round, with baseball and with the band.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine what that must have been like, especially in those early days of touring. I mean, it's a lot. It was a lot different then than it is now, right? We got the smartphones and everything now, so it makes things so much easier to navigate, let alone everything else.
Yeah, touring was. We joked about it the other day at rehearsal, like having all the maps out, trying to figure out where the street signs were in on the buildings in Europe, because they don't have the traditional posts with a street sign, and just trying to find our ways around places we haven't been. There was no I don't even think MapQuest existed. I think we had it one tour, that like one of the last US tours we did, or Canadian tour or something. There was the ability to like go on a computer and pre-route our trip, and half that was wrong anyway. They always sent us going the wrong direction, so it never worked.
Yes, yes. Good old MapQuest, I think, was one of the big ones anyway.
Yeah,
I remember using that, and I remember, you type in your addresses in MapQuest, you'd print out your directions, and then lo and behold, it took you either to the wrong address or a wrong turn, or it wasn't always accurate.
Definitely was not accurate. I don't know if bands nowadays really understand. Well, I'm sure they do, but it's a lot easier now with the ability to have a phone in your pocket that you can answer email, you can get a phone call, you can push a map icon or an app, and it just makes it so much easier to go out into the world that it's this new challenging unknown world that you're venturing into, and have the ability to not have to go find a payphone or ask somebody in a city center, hey, do you know where this club is? And just drive around in circles everywhere. So
what's a story that sticks out in your mind as we're talking about this? Is there a particular time you can think of where you got lost, or were super late to a show?
Oh, there's probably a ton of stories. I can go back to one in '85. We were touring. Actually, we were touring with No Effects, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
And we both sucked at the time, but we were touring around. It was our Christmas vacation. We were in high school, and we went out through like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and the Descendants just put out their. God, I'm gonna go blank here. It's the Yellow record, the second one.
I'm going blank on that
too.
Silly
Girl. Anyway, so they were touring on that record, and we had a show in Amarillo, Texas with them.
Okay.
And I just remember we were driving around in circles. And when we finally got to the club, the gig was over.
Oh, no. You're kidding me.
Oh, yeah. It was like 11, 12 o'clock at night. The promoter was super cool. He, invited us to come back to his house.
Man.
And, we were able to stay there because that's kind of what you did. You stayed on promoters' floors.
Right, exactly. Or sometimes they'd let you stay at the venue, depending on, what that situation was like.
Yeah, I only stayed in some venues in Europe, but for the most part, it was a promoter in the States. So I remember that show being completely lost, and we were just driving around, and guys were getting on each other's nerves. Turn that way, turn that way, and of course, nobody knew where the hell we were going. And
No,
I don't think Amarillo, Texas, is really that big, to be honest with you.
I don't
Um,
think so. I
not
mean,
not to get lost for hours and hours.
no. Uh-uh.
But there's another one that's super positive that
Okay.
we were in Europe the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 tours we had ever done, and we would drive our own van and have a trailer, and the booking agent would give us these maps, but they were photocopied, so they were blurred. You could barely read them.
Oh man.
It was just like a blob of ink. So we go to some local places and try to find some. Oh, hey, we're going to Paris. Let's find a map, or find a map of France, or whatever. And our guitar player Mike was sitting in the. I would drive, and he was sitting in the passenger seat. And he was like we called him Magellan. He was like the navigator. And somehow I just remember looking over to the passenger seat, and he had. I'm not exaggerating. He had like, it looked like 10 different newspapers in his hands. He was shuffling papers around, looking. Turn right. He'd look at another paper, turn left. And I swear to God, before you knew it, we were in the club parking lot. And I looked at him, I said, how the hell did you do that? He goes, I don't know. Don't ask me to get us out of here. So that actually worked out in our favor. That was a good one. But there's so many of those stories.
Yeah, pure luck on that one.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, man.
Especially on the one-way streets.
Yeah. That Descendants record was, I'm guessing it was I Don't Want to Grow Up.
I Don't Want to Grow Up, yeah.
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 That was Yellow.
Yellow, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. That was 85.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that was a tour they were on, and that was a year.
And I don't know like what the population would have been in Amarillo, but it's almost 200,000 now. But back in what was that, 85 you said?
85, yeah.
It's really hard to say how much it was then, you know. So that's, I mean, depending on what part of the world you're from. Like, to me, that's a decent size just because I grew up in a town of like 10,000 people. So, like, almost 200,000 people is big,
Yeah.
But, you know.
Still, we had 5 hours to find this place. We couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And do you remember like what any of the promoters or the bands or anything like that said to you? They're just like, yeah, it happens, or were they pretty upset?
oh no, definitely not upset. There was no money at stake. They didn't care. It was a
Yeah.
Descendants show, and I don't even know if we didn't have guarantees back then. You just kind of
No.
went for it, and they were like, "Hey, we'll
Yeah.
give you what we can give you," and you
Yeah.
just kind of went out on a hope that we were going to make enough money to pay for gas, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Food was a luxury.
Oh man.
But I do remember pulling up to the club, and the promoter seemed very happy. He had a good buzz on. His voice was gone because he was probably singing every Descendant song possible in the set. And he was super cool and nice. And he said, come on, let's come back to my house. So I just remember we went back to his house and we stayed. And then we woke up the next morning and drove to the next gig. So
Okay.
it was cool.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's so awesome to just think about all those memories. And something I can't remember is I know you were in 10-foot pole as well, but did that come before Pulley, or was that like around this? Were both of those going at the same time?
Well, originally our band name was called Scared Straight.
Right.
And we were part of like that whole Mystic record era.
Yes.
The Nardcore scene, if you're familiar with any of those bands.
Yeah, Dennis was on the show almost a year ago, maybe, and he kind of filled me in on some of that.
So yeah, there was a cool scene out here. It was in Oxnard, it was Ventura County. It was called Nardcore, and there was some pretty big local Southern California bands: Aggression, Dr. No, Ill Repute, Stalag 13. A lot of these bigger bands, RKL. And so we kind of fit into that little scene a little bit because we were in the area and we're playing shows with them and a lot of those bands and whatnot. And that was under the name Scared Straight. That existed for about 10 years, from about 82 to 92-ish. And then Scared Straight basically was the same members. we just changed the name to 10-Foot Pole. As things started to shift and the musical direction changed a little bit, we just thought, you know what, let's go for the fresh start and let's have the fresh name, which was the best move we could have ever done at the time. And we went a different style, almost a little more melodic, and we did that, and that lasted for me for about 2 years. We recorded 2 records, and then I was asked to leave by Dennis. And I started Pulley the next day.
Literally, you started Pulley the next day.
The next day.
Wow, man. Yeah. And mind you, this is while you were, in the White Sox, right?
This was in the middle of the season. I was in a hotel in Kansas City, and I got a phone call from him, and he basically said, now granted, this is 94, 95. I signed to play baseball in 86. I'd been going for almost 9-10 years at this point. And there was really no issue. We'd always, like I said, we had been a band for a decade or over. And we did a record on Epitaph, and the times were, at the time it was received well, and there wasn't a whole lot of saturation going on quite yet. So we kind of were there at the right time. I think there was just a handful of bands on the label that were, getting popular. And we kind of just fit right in there and wrote a few of those coattails and got on some really good gigs. And so it was during the middle of the season. I remember being in a hotel in Kansas City, and I got a phone call, and he said, hey, we're going to continue the band without you. We'll stop what we're doing for 4 months out of the year and be your backup band, but then we want to continue 10-Foot Pole the other 8 months. So my suggestion was, well, since we've been doing this for so long and we just finally scratched through the surface, why don't we keep what we have going on for 4 months? And since you guys want to be full-time musicians now, you have 8 months to do your thing. They weren't buying it. They wanted to kind of, there was a little bit of hype. And then, like I said, the name was on a good label, and they wanted to go for it. So they did. And I came home, I started Pulley, I made a couple phone calls, might have even been that night. And all I know is I started Pulley over the phone. I came home from baseball that year, and within 3 months we had a band and a full record on Epitaph. And that's kind of where it all started, how it evolved. And to be honest, it was probably one of the best phone calls I ever got in my life, because I really highly doubt that the 10-Foot Pole people would still be coexisting to this day. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything, as they say, happens for a reason. As cliche as that sounds.
Totally true.
Totally true. It's true. It's absolutely true. Everything works out the way it's supposed to, and like, and in your situation, it's like, well, you kind of have to, you realize it. You're like, okay, I just got to go with the flow. I'm just going to start my own band, like, instead of just kind of like, licking your wounds about it. You're like, all right.
Well, I was terribly disappointed, and
I'm sure you were.
And I thought it was a bad decision. I really did. But when it's 4 against 1, and I had a job. Now they all had jobs as well, and most of the time we would work around their schedules, as well as mine. So it really had never become an issue until. But the thing that really bothered me was how they portrayed it to the people. Was like, well, Scott doesn't want to tour. Scott can't be in a band. He doesn't have time to do this. He doesn't have time to do that. And that wasn't a motivator by no means. I had this itch I was just kind of really becoming what I guess in the 80s, I wouldn't consider myself a musician. But as the 90s rolled around, I felt like I had an idea of how to write a song and how to, sing to a song and have melody. And so I was into the music, and the music was changing, and it was fresh, and it was new, and it was fun. So the last thing I wanted to do was start something new, but I really didn't have much of a choice. And that's kind of how it started. So, like we just mentioned, things happen for a reason, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Are you guys on good terms today?
I have not spoke to Dennis since that phone call.
Wow.
Well, we just don't really have anything to talk about, to be honest with you.
Right.
Tony, the drummer, was in the band. He actually was in Pulley for probably close to a decade, recorded a few records with us before he went on to join Papa Roach. Pete, the bass player, still communicate with him, here and there. And Steve, the other guitar player, I saw him a couple of times, and it was like, it was like old times. It was like, hey, what's up? And I haven't seen him in years. Really, Tony's probably the only one, the drummer, that I, really kept in contact with. Pete's moved away to Florida, and like I said, I don't know where Steve really is, but I know I ran into him. But as far as Dennis went, yeah, just kind of never saw each other or spoke to each other.
Yeah. I mean, and that's understandable. I would imagine, though, there had to have been. Did you guys ever get booked on the same festivals or anything like that where you would come across each other?
Never.
I guess
Never happened.
I guess you got lucky.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was disappointed, and probably even to the point of anger for a while. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's like I got my job. You guys are going to go for it. Go ahead. I thought it was a mistake, like I said, and it's not for me to judge whether it turned out to be a mistake or not. But I know I'm in a band that's productive, and I'm happy. And it's funny because I think 25 years have gone by now, and I'm still playing music. So I always wonder, like, well, why was that the excuse of why did I have to be the guy that was like, took the, the fall for like, why I'm out of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of more like their side of the story rather than, wait a second, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Right. It's all, it's been, over 20, I'm all about, over 25. Right. Yeah. You said about 94.
Yeah. It was 95 when I was out of the band.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
And I'm really curious to learn more about your baseball career as well. Just because, I mean, you were in the White Sox for how many seasons?
With that organization for 10 years.
Yeah, that was a long time. And I'm just an hour south of Chicago. So,
okay.
So it's, and what's funny is like, anytime when I started seeing the name Pulley coming up and things like that, I don't know if it was just in the last couple of years that I kind of had discovered the band, but I had assumed that Pulley was from Chicago just because most everyone that like I don't know if it was because the people I know kind of painted that picture like they're from Chicago, and I don't know if that had anything to do with you being with the White Sox. It probably did, but yeah, when I learned that, you had played for the White Sox, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's the Chicago connection right there,
Yeah, and it's funny, like when Pulley started, I left the White Sox and came home to play for the Dodgers. So I was here for 3 years, and that was super beneficial to the initial kind of start of what was going on, because being here at home, we'd have off days here and there, and we could book a gig, or I could be more closer in contact, actually see each other face to face from time to time during the season, which was kind of non-existent when I was in Chicago. So that's right when Pulley started. I guess it would have been it was the winter of '95, and then I came to the Dodgers in '96. So yeah, my White Sox time was already over, unfortunately. Yeah.
And was that planned? Were you like, I want to be close to home now, or did that just end up being like one of those deals where you got traded, or how did that work for you?
Well, the way it works is you play a certain amount of years before you're able to become a free agent, and that was my situation with the White Sox. I think they were going through a time where it was like a rebuilding period with the team. Some of the older guys, you start making money. It's like, well, we're not going to bring this guy back. We're not going to bring that guy back. And I had always kind of had in the back of my mind, obviously growing up here in Southern California and being a Dodger fan when I was a kid, and, my first baseball games that I ever went to were there. I'd always had this thought of, well, that'd be really cool to come home and play in LA. I mean, I have a house here. What a dream that would be. Because
Yeah.
that's like a whole nother thing. I don't think, it's one thing I pack my suitcase up and I go away for 8 months, but during that 8 months, I've got to find an apartment. I've got a whole nother set of utilities, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So, wow, I can go to the spring training with a little suitcase, come home, and my car's here, my clothes are here, everything's here, my dog. So when I had that opportunity, I jumped on it. It was more me initiating the contact with the Dodgers. They really didn't like seek me out. It was more me seeking them out. And they said, well, if you want to come here, sure. And I did. And I ended up having, I think, 3 of the best years of my time when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So baseball started for you in high school. How did you get the baseball bug? Did it start with like your dad or your grandpa or anything like that?
As a little kid, just kind of growing up in the neighborhood, we would play basketball during basketball season, or we'd play baseball, whatever. And it wasn't really that serious of a thing for me growing up until I got into high school. Right before the 11th grade, I was actually kicked off the team my sophomore year. Or I was told you're no longer needed here.
Oh.
So I was kind of like on the fence with baseball, and I signed up in 11th grade, like 6th period. It would have been a PE class, but it was baseball. And I just never went. And I was going through some tough stuff at home. My father was ill. He eventually ended up passing away, and which is pretty tough at that time in your life. And
Absolutely.
Being into punk rock, I was already rebellious and had like this chip on my shoulder and this anger. And at least that's what punk was back then.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's really crazy how it worked. And I probably sound like a shithead for saying it, but, so my dad was always supportive, whether it was, the sports or music, whatever. He built a music room onto the house for us to jam in when we were in high school. Super supportive. And I remember walking through the school, and the baseball coach stopped me at lunchtime, and he said, "Hey, Radinsky." He's like, "Aren't you in my class?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "When are you going to show up?" And I said, my dad just passed away last Friday, or whatever day it was, a Sunday, I think it was. And I said, "Maybe I'll start coming." And he kind of looked at me and he went, "Oh man," he's, "I'm really sorry to hear about that." He's like, "We'd love to have you out there." And I showed up to the field that day, and he asked me for my jacket size, my hat size. He sent me over to this other coach, and he said, "This guy's a pitching guy." He said, "Go learn how to pitch." And it's almost like he just took me in and said, "No matter what, you're going to be a part of this. You need this right now." And I'll tell you what, man, that fueled some fire. Like, that gave me this determination, this drive. I had something to fight for. And it just, the timing of everything in that part of my life at that moment, because I was either going to Hollywood and I was just going to go try to make it and live and do whatever I could do and be some gutter punk probably, or and this guy walked up to me, like everything happens for a reason. And he walked up to me in the quad at lunch and said what he said. I started going to baseball practice, and shit, man, 35 years went by and I made a profession out of the sport. It's just crazy how it worked.
Yeah, that's absolutely. You just don't expect those things to happen,
Mm-hmm.
You think, "Oh, okay, well, sure, I'll give baseball a try." The next thing you know, it's your profession besides music,
Yeah,
So you got drafted in high school, right?
correct.
And they don't do that anymore, right?
They do. They actually
Okay.
do.
I didn't think they did, because I'm not the most baseball savvy, so you'll have to excuse me. But I'm just like curious. I was like, I don't think they draft in high school anymore.
They do, and you just have to stand out. I think a lot of teams right now, with the way the game is structured and the way the financial side of it's structured, the more closer you are to being major league ready, the more value you have. So to invest in a high school kid, you sit back and you think, well, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to develop this kid. And usually the regime, the front office that drafts you, they're not even around long enough to see you make it to the major leagues, because they're fired in 3-4 years. That's kind of the way the cycle works.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon, and I wouldn't say it's rare, but you got to be, I think you got to be a high school player that shows some sort of upside that might develop a little quicker. Because, those years between 18 and 22, those college years, those are huge years for an athlete that's developing. And the difference between an 18-year-old who's, raw and green and a 22-year-old who's, got 3, 4 more years under his belt and a little bit more experience, he's polished, more developed, he's got a better chance of being drafted for less money because he's not giving up anything other than maybe his senior year of college. And he might go into pro ball, and within a year or two, he might find himself at the major league level. Where as a high school kid, like I said, you've got to. Now this is today's era, not when I was drafted, but in today's era, you've got to come up with the money to entice a kid to say, well, because if you have the opportunity to be drafted as a high school player, odds are there's some pretty good top schools that are giving you some sort of scholarship to get an education as well as play on their team. And that's tough for a lot of people to turn away. And especially when your parents are influencing you, we want you to go to school and you're not going to go. So it's to make this answer short, no, it's not uncommon. Sorry.
No. You're fine. You're fine. I'm wanting to learn all about this. I'm very, very interested and fascinated in it. So, how did it work for you then? You're drafted. I'm assuming it's got to be your senior year, right?
Yeah. After high school, I graduated. I graduated on a Friday, and then I joined the White Sox rookie ball team in Florida on Saturday, and I started that life. And just kind of work your way through the ranks. For me, another crazy, the way it worked out was traditionally there's different levels. So you start at the rookie level, then you'd go to a single A level, a double A level, a triple A level, and eventually, if you're lucky enough, you make it to the big leagues. I want to say 70% of the players in general don't make it out of the single A level. The double A level is a smaller percentage, and then triple A is who knows. So I toyed around the rookie ball level for 3 years. I couldn't even sniff the single A level. Finally, in my 4th minor league season, or actually my 3rd full minor league season, I got to play on a single A team in South Bend, Indiana. It was for the White Sox. I played that whole season, and then the next year I went to the big leagues, and I never went back. So I missed the double A opportunity, the triple A opportunity. And I was once again at the right place at the right time. And the team was going through a rebuild. And in 1990, they said, we want you. And they had enough guts to give me a shot. And it worked out for all of us.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So when you're working or when you're playing for these minor league teams, how does that work exactly? So the White Sox, they have like how many teams do they have that are rookie teams?
Traditionally,
or minor.
Minor league teams. It would be like I said, it would be a rookie ball level team, which is like the fresh kids out of high school or some of the younger kids that come from other countries, the Dominican, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. And they have that based in Florida and Arizona. And it's a short season. It's like 2 months. It's after school's over. It's all the fresh guys that just got drafted in June. They come and they play a July and August season, basically, is what it is. And then there's a single A level, which is a full season. It's a 5 months, 140 some odd games. And a lot of teams have 2 A ball levels. They have a low level and a high level. And there's different leagues around the country that have, I guess, the level I played in was in the Midwest League. It was in South Bend, and it was considered a low-level A-ball team. A lot of junior college, a lot of high school players. The high A-ball team that we had at the time was in Florida, and that would have been, more your like college juniors, your senior guys, your free agent drafts, whatever that you signed, older guy, a little bit more experienced. And then double A and triple A is just as you work your way through those levels. So most teams have about 4 or 5 minor league affiliates, as well as then they have a major league team.
And so when when you were sent up to the big leagues, how does it? I know sometimes I read people get sent back. How does that happen? That's something I've always wondered about. Like, you're playing major league, then all of a sudden they send you back to AAA or whatever.
Oh, well, it starts with the manager calling in the office and saying, "Hey, the organization's going to make a move." Um, I'm fortunate. I honestly can't tell you what that conversation's like.
Yeah.
Thank God I was never brought into that. But back before, I would say probably before the 2000s, the only reason you would get sent down is by lack of performance.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a major league player, you could hold your own and you were contributing, you stayed in the big leagues. If you struggled, they send you back. You go back down to AAA or whatever. They tell you, "Hey, we need you to go work on this, work on that," and you go down there and work on that skill set and try to get yourself better, and then you come back to the big leagues. Nowadays, it all boils down to service time and money, and there's a lot of behind the scene things that send guys back or keep guys from coming. And I think in Chicago, just a handful of years ago, there was a kid from the Cubs who was by far the best player in the team. But they weren't going to let him start the year. He had to wait 11 days into the season, so they brought him up like mid-April, because if they brought him up mid-April, that means they would have had control for another year at the back end of his tenure, which would have been, we have this guy for 6 years instead of 5 years. There's a lot of crazy politics and like I said, a lot of business decisions that go into it nowadays. I've been as a coach with some organizations that would take a player and they would say, "Hey, we're going to send him back just for 2 weeks to give him a rest. We're going to come up with this bogus reason for him to go on the disabled list. He pulled a calf muscle or something, and we're going to shut him down for 2 weeks because we want him to be fresh for the last 2 weeks." That didn't used to happen. It was, you gutted through the 6 months. You did what you had to do, and put duct tape, scotch tape, whatever it was to get out there on the field. And it's different now. It's just different. And I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's sometimes it sucks for the players because that elevator ride up and down it can just get mentally, it can get frustrating.
I would think so because I used to have to put together a sports report for the radio station I work for. I used to work Saturday mornings, and I'd always have to put together a sports report, and I'd kind of read over the sports minutes, and I'd read about these guys coming back and forth, and I'm like, man, like this is crazy. Like how do they do that? It would just drive me nuts.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean. And I know financially for a lot of them, and a lot of guys that have families, and they're just moving because you don't get time. It's if they called you in tonight, you're expected to be at this AAA team or AA team tomorrow. So if you have a wife and a kid, and you're in, let's say you're in, somewhere in Maine, Portland, Maine, and your team's in Chicago, well, I don't know. It's not we don't care how your wife and kid get there, but you just better make sure you're there tomorrow. And that's kind of the way it works. And that can happen. Like I said, I've had some guys as a coach that have gone up and down 8-9 times a year, and that's really hard on somebody.
That's a lot.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's like twice a month. It's ridiculous, but that's the way they do it, and it sucks.
I know we could go on forever about the baseball stuff, and I obviously I know you're here for Pulley, but I'm just
I'm here for you, man. I'm not here for anything.
Well, I'm happy you're here. I'm glad we were able to reschedule. Let's talk about Pulley. I know the acoustic EP album has been out since May now, called Different Strings, but it was announced, I think it was announced like just 2 weeks ago about the encore, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's going on with that?
Well, it started with the 4-song acoustic record. We started a relationship with this company in Europe called Spam, and they put out that record, and then he was really wanting to put out some more stuff, and we had done a live stream last year during the quarantine, a little less than a year ago, I guess, maybe right around a year ago, and we had a recording of it, and we did 13, 14 songs, and actually sounded really good. We were in the studio, like this movie type studio thing where they did the live stream, and the engineer said, "Bring in a hard drive and I'll record it for you." So we did that. Didn't really think much of it. And so when this guy, his name's Stefan with this company Spam.
Yes.
He wanted to put something out, and we had a couple of EPs that we had released over the years that really never got proper I don't know what you want to call it, but like they were really never put out properly. They were on like kind of our label or a makeshift label up in Canada. Guy helped us out a lot, but they just never really got any due, I guess. And so we came up with this idea of combining the two EPs together and then taking some of the live songs and putting it together on one record as I guess maybe like a holdover until we put out a new release, at some point, I think the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it transpired. And it's going to be on vinyl with all these different variants, which seems to be really cool. And it was new artwork and just something fresh.
Yeah. I mean, and vinyl is still going strong. People are loving vinyl. And I love the idea behind, obviously now it all makes sense with the name Encore. You're kind of like, here, let's try this again. We want you to listen to these songs again, or maybe you didn't know about them before, So
for sure.
So give them another shot. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to one of my favorite band's new records, and I'll listen to it, all the way through once or twice, and I'm like, maybe I'm not feeling it, so I just kind of shelve it. And then sometimes a couple years goes by and I'll give it another listen. I'm like, you know what? I'll give it another shot. And then I listen to it. I'm like, how did I not love this?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with me? So I think it's cool that you guys are kind of like, showing your fans like, hey, like, we really think you need to give this another listen because this is some of our best material and you should give it another shot,
Well, one of the EPs was 5 songs. The other was a little 7-inch. So there was 8 songs. And then when you combine that with I want to say it's 7 live songs that have never been released, I thought, well, that could be a cool package.
Yeah.
And, that'll be cool. And I think it was more like the live stuff that I was excited about. But when I heard the other songs, remastered, and I thought, and that's like the big thing, right? Remaster, remix. But it made a difference. And it sounds really cool. And I can't wait to get my hands on a vinyl and actually check it out.
Yeah, that's always the coolest thing. I'm sure it never gets old to listen to your music on vinyl. It has to be such the coolest feeling in the world.
Yeah, I don't listen to a whole lot of our music, but
but
just to hold the record, itself, and
yeah,
I was looking at a reissue that Epitaph did, a Eurotaph of the very first record we ever did called A Steam Driven Engine, and they just put out a 25th year anniversary vinyl variant, and I'm holding the record and I'm reading the lyric sheet, and for the first time I could actually understand what I was reading, because on the CD it was so small I couldn't see anything. I just couldn't read it, and it almost was like to fit everything in, things were blurred and kind of smudgy. But on this, I remembered what it was like being a kid and holding a record in my hand and flipping over the back and seeing all the credits and reading the lyrics and where it was recorded. Everything was legible. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, I remember those times looking through CD jackets trying to figure out, oh, what's he singing here? It sounds like he's saying dog, but he's saying dad, something
Yeah,
else, and the lyrics would be so small in that
super hard to
C
read.
yeah, in that CD jacket, and you're like,
Yeah,
I can't read it.
yeah.
So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So I know Encore pre-order is still available for that, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I had it pulled up a little while ago, and I can't remember. Sorry, let me see if I can get that up again. I just want to make sure. Do you remember the release date on it? Because that's something I couldn't remember
I
either.
don't know if it's even released yet, to be honest with you.
I don't think it is. I think
No, I
it's.
think it's
Well, let's see.
just the pre-orders.
August 12th is when it was announced.
Right.
No, but it looks like it's still available, as far as I know, as far
Yeah,
as I can tell here.
I'm pretty sure it's just the pre-order still. I don't know when
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Oh, September 24th. There we go.
That's when it's
Yeah.
coming out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I should probably know that, but I don't.
hey, I should have known that too, because I know somewhere I had a press release on it.
Mhm.
But so the one side is the two EPs, then the other side is the live.
Or it's
Or
a
is
double.
it?
It's a double record, I think. I want
It
to
is
say.
it is a double record. My
I have
apologies.
I have a billion emails, but I want to say that
It is two records.
it's like at 45 RPMs for sound quality. It actually,
okay.
it's supposed to sound on a 12-inch disc. It's supposed to sound better, but
That's what
we'll
I've
see.
heard. That's
Yeah.
what I've heard. I was been doing some reading online recently about vinyl, and I did read that, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So, so that'll be cool to hear that at 45 speed then. So
Hopefully, I could be wrong on that, but we'll
yeah,
see.
it doesn't say anything about that, but it gives the release date of September 24th. And
Mhm.
obviously you can pre-order it right now, so everyone should go do that. And these are some really cool looking variants, by the way. I really like these.
I've been blown away at some of the stuff that's been put out lately, just by a lot of bands, and like the discs are so striking to your eyes. I mean, they're you want to eat them almost. They look like big lollipops.
They do.
You
I
know?
thought about that. I just want to put it on a stick and
Exactly. Eat it. Lick it.
So does Pulley have any shows coming up at all? I think maybe there's a festival date or two, if I'm not mistaken.
We do have a couple shows coming up in September. We just booked a show in October yesterday, and then we have a couple of shows in November. One of them's a big festival here in Orange County, LA area. And then most of the stuff that we had booked for this year has all been pushed back to 22. So once we get into 2022, we've got a pretty decent amount of stuff on the schedule, both local, international, Canada. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been I think it's been almost 2 years now in the making of pushing these dates back, and
Yeah.
the airline credit ran out, so we kind of got screwed. A lot of financial issues with trying to book a tour and then having it flop out like that. But it was all for the better. I mean, nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's still a rocky time, but I mean, it's like live music is happening, but it's iffy.
It's sketchy.
It's sketchy.
It's sketchy. Although they're packing 300,000 people or 100,000 people in, what is it, Grant Park? What do they call it there?
For
Lollapalooza,
yeah,
Riot Fest.
Riot Fest is still happening. I was shocked. So I went to Wrigley Field to see the Hella Mega Tour.
Oh, cool.
And I was, I mean, Wrigley has, just like most places do right now, they have, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, but if you aren't, you do, that kind of thing. But I was surprised they didn't adopt, and maybe they have by now, or maybe they will, but the whole, you have to have proof of a vaccination card or proof of negative COVID test. Like they didn't require that. And I was just surprised because that's I don't know how big Wrigley is, but obviously thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, it was sold out. And your shoulder, you know, trying to so I was really surprised at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know everybody's got their own opinions on this particular subject, and
Right.
I personally, I think that one of the hottest selling items on the internet, on the black market right now, is a fake ID, a fake vaccinated card.
It really is.
Which sucks for the people.
Yes.
For the people who've gone through it, and it just
Yep.
that's the lack of respect that people have for each other. So I still walk around and I think to myself, if I'm around 50 people, I know that 25 of them are not vaccinated, and they don't give a shit about me. So I just kind of stand over to my side. I don't know what I'm going to react like when I get into a big group of people because I haven't been yet. And I know that just being vaccinated doesn't mean shit. I mean, look at all the people that still die.
Yeah.
And I have underlying health conditions myself. And not to be all preachy or paranoid, I'm not going to stop my life, but I'm certainly going to try to protect myself and do everything I can. And it sucks when people around you don't care enough, and all they care about is, I want to go to the show or I want to go to this event. And it's like, well, there's responsibilities as a human being that you owe to these other human beings, and you don't give a shit, so you don't care.
Yeah.
And it's like the ones who have the fake card.
Yeah.
I hope there's a way they can really I hope there's a way they can figure this out, because like what you said about, if you're vaccinated, you don't wear a mask. If you are, you do. Well, how do you know? You know? Is it the honor system with something like this? Because that's not going to work for me.
It must be, and I know that was what they were supposed to do for Lollapalooza, but how well that was executed, I'm not sure, because we're talking once again thousands upon thousands of people,
Right.
and I know more and more venues are adopting that same protocol of, you have to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test, and
or they're just doing it at the front end just to cover their ass, and then really not enforcing any of it.
It depends on who's executing the policy, Rachel says the Jonas Brothers tour just announced negative COVID test or vaccination card for their whole tour. So, then again, it varies. Sometimes it's the venues, sometimes it's the promoter, or sometimes it's the artist.
Right.
And the Jonas Brothers case, it's them. So,
I know everybody has to make a living somehow, and the people that have been fortunate enough to make a living playing music, they have the right to earn a living.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of respect for some of the bands that have pulled out and said, until this shit kind of dies down a little bit, we're not going to put 10,000 people, 20,000 people in harm's way potentially. And I have a lot of respect for that, because I think it takes bigger balls to do that than to go stand on stage. And like I said, I'm getting preachy now, and I don't want to.
No, I don't think you're getting preachy. I mean, it makes sense. I think the ones that the ones that can afford to do it are the ones that are pulling back and saying, okay, we can wait longer, But obviously, there's some they can't afford to do it, so they're just doing the best that they can with the situation, So
yeah, I mean, the industry was hit hard, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Among many other things. So,
for sure.
Many other industries. But Scott, this was so much fun, man.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for talking with me and answering my baseball questions. And I just think it's so fascinating that like you're a punk rock baseball player. How cool is that? And I feel like you're the only one, unless there's another one that I don't know about, but I've never heard of another one. So none
that I know of.
Yeah. See, so I mean, you've got you've got your name to fame, man. You know, so and I mean it's exciting that Pulley is still going after all this time.
Yeah, very fortunate and grateful for the way everything's turned out and the opportunity to still basically play music with my friends and
Yep.
get on stage and do it and record. And I mean, that's what being in a band's all about. So to have that opportunity is super grateful.
Absolutely. So, by the way, the link to get the Encore vinyl, it's shop.sbam.rocks, and that's SBAM is how it's spelled. So, shop SBAM.rocks. So, if you want to pre-order that, or I don't know if there's any copies left of the different strings or not, but I know there's other Pulley merch too that's available there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can find all of that there. Scott, is there anything else Pulley related or that you want to mention?
Can't really think of anything off the top of my head. No,
Okay.
Just like I said, just excited about what's coming down the future with the new songs, new recording, shows in the future. Hopefully everything goes as planned and is smooth, and everybody keeps doing their part, staying safe, so we can get back to doing it at a regular level.
Yes, exactly. Where it feels more normal and we don't all feel all like, oh my gosh, germs everywhere. So I know that's what was going through my head when I was at Wrigley. It was just
For sure.
It was weird. Just being
imagine.
like that close to that many people, it felt strange. So, but Scott, you have a great night, and I can't wait to listen to Encore.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It was a good chat, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, let's give Scott a round of applause once again from Pulley for being on the podcast. It was truly an honor and a privilege to talk to someone as well known as he is in the skate punk world. And then also to Christian Fisher of Settle Your Scores. That was also a special treat as well. Besides, pre-ordering Pulley's vinyl Encore, I highly, highly suggest you listen to Settle Your Scores' new album, Retrofit. I really do think that this album has the potential to be a new pop-punk classic for years to come. So give that a listen and buy that as well. And give our sponsor, Pop Punk Takeout, some support as well. You can go to poppunktakeout.com and pre-order their September box right now, which is actually a bunch of awesome smart punk records artists, including Krista Makes of Less Than Jake. So go to poppunktakeout.com. Also follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Pop Punk Takeout. And then, as I said earlier, or at the beginning of this episode, I am going to go forward with rolling out a Kickstarter to help cover the costs of recovering the lost data on my external hard drive where I stored all of Pop Punk and Pizza stuff, and also the other podcast I have, Kankakee Podcast. It's all under the Lamore Media umbrella. I am going to roll out a Kickstarter for that. So I haven't, nothing's all decided on this yet. So I'm looking to get your input on what rewards you would like to pledge for. So please feel free to hit me up on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Pop Punk Pizza Pod, or even just shooting me an email at bangarangradio@gmail.com and being like, hey, man, I just want to be a co-host on one episode of the podcast. I'll pledge for that, or pledge for a special T-shirt, whatever it is. I want to know what you would want to pledge for this Kickstarter, because I got to dig up about $2,600 to pay for the recovery of the data, and then I also need to pay for a proper backup system so that this doesn't happen to me again. I promise I've learned my lesson on that. So I'm Jacques Lamour. Thank you so much once again for watching our live stream or just listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for that. We do live stream each episode every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time on our Facebook, our Twitch, and our YouTube accounts, just in case you ever want to watch it live. I will talk to you again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. That'll be September. It'll be our first episode for September 1st, and we will be talking with Flight Club about their new release and a guest besides them that I have yet to announce. So if you follow us on all the socials, you'll find out who it is eventually. So have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you next week.
Hey, hello, it's nice to